Hi, this is Chris Heineken bringing you a new installment of our Insight Track interview series, in which we invite industry and technology thought leaders to discuss analytics, machine learning, current market trends, and how companies are evolving to be more data-driven with intelligent systems. And joining me today is Peter MacDonald, the head of strategic partnerships at Snowflake. Peter, you have been a big part of helping support Atrium and our relationship and getting that going. And so thank you for working with us and welcome.
Thanks. It's great to be here, Chris.
And I'll get us started because I imagine the folks that are watching this have a lot in mind, a lot of questions about the whole landscape and how Snowflake is fitting in. And so one of the things that brought us together as far as the relationship between our companies is this whole transformation that's going on around analytics and moving data platforms and modernizing data platforms. And Snowflake really comes top of mind to many in the market. And I'm curious, over the last few years, what are some of the trends that you've observed around analytics and data platforms? It'd be great for you to share that.
Yeah, I think I'd probably want to highlight three key trends. One is the acceleration in the move to the cloud. And that's driven by an increasing recognition of a number of data cloud benefits. And we do believe that there's what's emerging here very quickly. It's not just use of platforms in the cloud, but a full data cloud, which is platforms, complementary services, and data, most importantly. There are, I think, a number of key points to highlight in some of these advantages and benefits of the data cloud. The first of all is just straight up performance gains. What you can do with the elasticity and unlimited storage and performance and compute in the cloud is a lot more than what you can get in on-prem systems. The second thing is that these new cloud native systems can also deliver a bunch of features and benefits that you're not going to be able to get with existing legacy technology on-premise. And then opens up additional use cases. Sometimes those use cases are driven by these new features. Sometimes they're driven purely by, frankly, more capabilities and performance. And then the last thing I would note is that what's also very interesting, what's driving this migration very quickly, is that you're getting all these things and generally spending less money than what you've been doing with on-prem systems. So that kind of combination of benefits and cost reductions driving, really toward adoption at this point of people moving into the data cloud. So that I think is the first key trend. The second point I would make is we're seeing a lot more interest in machine learning. And that's because once you have your platform and you've moved into the data cloud, you can then say, what do you want to do next? You can then bring in a lot more data. That's bringing in all your first party data and a lot of third party data as well, or second party data from partners, if you will. And that can produce some really great machine learning models. And you're seeing also next generation machine learning tools coming out, taking advantage of what can be done in the cloud. So I think that ML, that trend toward ML, we've been talking about it for some time, but you're now seeing a lot of adoption. And the technology vendors, Snowflake and our ML partners, are making very quick advancements in features to make that easier for our customers, more impactful. The third thing I would focus is a lot of what's happening with analytics is focusing on understanding the customer better, particularly in these rapidly changing times of the pandemic. It has not been business as usual for almost all companies out there in organizations, and leveraging data to take advantage of getting the insights that these companies desperately need to understand where the revenue is going to come from, what's happening with their customers is very important.
That's great. So three big trends there. It sounds like movement to cloud, machine learning is incrementing up on people's interest level. And then this whole notion of what's the disruptive change that's happening around COVID and the pandemic, how that's really creating a premium around some analytics and descriptive analytics to figure out what's going on, right, to operationalize around that. So those are some great
Absolutely
takeaways. I wonder if we could just drill in on the machine learning side specifically. And we spend a lot of time in the prediction space. And any more comment there as far as the trends you're seeing around predictions and how Snowflake as a platform is helping support that ambition in the marketplace, like maybe different platform partners you're working with, or just any other, information you can provide there would be great.
Sure. So I think, Chris, like you mentioned, we absolutely do see move from what we call descriptive analytics, which is, what has happened, in some cases, why, to predictive analytics. And that's where these machine learning based insights really come in. And I think importantly, to deliver these insights and have the impact, those insights need to be delivered to business users and not just data scientists that create the models and help create those insights themselves. I'd say, it starts with the use cases and business questions that are most important to the business users and the organizations. What do they want to get predictions on? And then the data scientists can then go out and gather the data and build the models to drive those predictions. Or in the case of AutoML, create the data, put it up to an AutoML platform and make that happen. We're working with a number of almost really all the leading machine learning platforms out there right now to enable that and to tightly integrate our capabilities as a cloud data platform in the data cloud with them. And again, we view the data cloud being inclusive of all of our technology and service partners like Atrium to deliver these insights. So, we had a bunch of good announcements just a week or two ago with Amazon SageMaker during the machine learning keynote that I think was very important. We also, of course, we announced that same week an investment commercial partnership with DataRobot. And we have very, very close partnerships with other vendors like Dataiku, H2O, Alteryx, and others as well that we're working on.
Fantastic. Thanks for highlighting that. You mentioned a little bit about use cases. I want to probe there a little bit. So if you think about it from an industry lens, any industries that are jumping out to you that are, more on the higher up the adoption curve, either as it relates to your platform or what you're seeing with machine learning, any industries that jump?
Yeah, I think there are some industries and also some other, I'd say, horizontal use cases as well.
Yeah.
And again, I think one of the areas where we come into play as Snowflake is first of all, we are that single source of data, that single source of truth, with some really powerful capabilities that we can underpin getting the data ready for machine learning. But importantly, we're also the conduit through which these insights will be delivered to the stakeholders. So, Snowflake needs to be able to either have the data inside us, the insights inside of us, or we can call out to these machine learning systems and get those insights as well. Some of the things that we think are very interesting, we see a lot of customers looking at, are things like, how about getting true holistic customer 360? That's been talked about for some time, but I think if you go back even just a couple of years ago, it's been lacking on a lot of key dimensions. I think now with the breadth of data we have available to us, along with the platforms that we now have in place, we can make that a reality. On a related but different space are, what about things like account and lead scoring as well, which is very, very important, talking about how are you going to focus your resources to get that revenue. And we are seeing adoption in many other spaces too. But I think those are in a lot of different verticals. It's not really just one or two. I will say some industries are more leaders in technology adoption than others, but we're seeing the adoption of cloud analytics going across many, many industries at this point.
I see. So it's not like there's, a big movement. Financial services is, top vertical that you're seeing traction with. It sounds like it's kind of holistically across the board. Every vertical is interested in this space.
I think you will see some differentiation. Certainly, data-intensive industries like financial services have led the way. And in some cases, they're leading the way as well with machine learning. But you're also seeing that with life sciences, media, entertainment. We're now seeing manufacturing come on board. One of our most interesting use cases is of a computer board in semiconductor manufacturer, what they're doing with IoT and manufacturing. So the recognition that was maybe in financial services going back 2-3 years ago with some of the leaders there, I think is now much more broadly dispersed.
Okay.
But you still see concentrations in certain verticals versus others.
And you hit a little bit on kind of the functional area use cases. I mean, we spend a lot of our time in the CRM space, anything around sales, service, marketing, the mid office. So are really high traffic areas for use cases, or anything around, you mentioned lead scoring. So anything customer acquisition related, anything customer retention oriented, or anything that's around predictive forecasting, those among many tend to be what's really popular, especially around predictions and predictive analytics. I'm curious, as you look at the business problems that Snowflake is solving, does any function stick out to you? Is it more front office solves, like what I just described, or is it more supply chain, logistics, finance, HR, any other kind of, I guess, business domain or function area patterns that really jump out to you?
We're honestly seeing adoption in all those areas, and in some cases, you're looking at finance in the back office. It's, hey, listen, I'm having trouble running my reports. I have these delays with my on-premise systems, or I'm coming up with a very expensive renewal. Now's the time for me to think about making a migration to the cloud. Versus other folks maybe in sales are saying, hey, listen, I'm really not doing lead scoring and doing it well now. I want to take advantage of some new solutions out there, like ML-based forecasting. And so the drivers may be a bit different versus kind of a renewal of an on-prem solution, being able to save money and get a better platform by moving to cloud, versus looking for these next-gen capabilities. When you come back to Customer 360, can you bring in all the, as we call it, semi-structured data, what's happening out there on the web with web analytics and so forth, and bring that in and make drive insights from that. I think Disney Plus spoke at our recent Data Cloud Summit and talked about how they were able to grow to tens of millions of users without increasing the administration at all needed. And getting those insights was critically important for them to be able to announce to the street when they're reaching certain milestones, and getting insights into their users to plan their next generation of content. So a lot of very interesting different use cases across, I'd say, most parts of the organization.
All right, thank you, Peter. Let me transition topics a little bit. You are head of partnerships, so two really come to mind for us. You mentioned already that you had a big announcement around Amazon and SageMaker, and we got reInvent that is either going on or will be concluding very shortly. And then also you've done a lot with the Salesforce team. Maybe just expand on your thought process around relationships you're building and what you're excited about with those relationships and what they mean for your customers down the road.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I think when you look at both of these partnerships and both of these companies, and Snowflake as well, as a great thing is that we all start by looking at the customers and working back from there. What are their pain points? What are their desires? What do they want to do? And then how can we deliver solutions to meet those needs? The Salesforce partnership with Snowflake, I think the thing that probably gets the most publicity is the investment that Salesforce has in Snowflake. But the reality is that what drove that, and what had to happen before we would even take the money, we didn't need more money, though we're obviously happy to partner with Salesforce, is saying, listen, how can we actually partner together? And when Mark Benioff approached our CEO, Frank Slootman, and said, hey, listen, when I look at the top destinations that my own customers are bringing Salesforce data, you're there. And so what can we do together? Because they've got a bunch of great data assets and a bunch of great analytic assets, but they don't have the platform that we do. And there's that natural synergy between the companies. And so we started with looking at how do we do that? And the good thing is we have an approach that's looking at not just the current release of the current connector. We have another connector release coming out, and we're thinking about the next phase of the partnership as well, all keyed off of solving customer problems in specific use cases. And so you'll see a lot more from us with that. And that will also end up driving a lot more collaboration directly with the field, the Salesforce field, as we're able to kind of broaden what we're doing as far as solving those customer pain points. I think the relationship with AWS has progressed tremendously since I've been here over the last 2 years. As Andy Jassy mentioned during a bunch of interviews around and during some of the keynotes as well, Snowflake is a very important partner of AWS, and they view making Snowflake just as successful as their own first-party products to be important. That's kind of their overall partner approach, being a platform, along with having their first-party products. What that has meant for us is we're now collaborating a lot more with the AWS field, and there are certain programs in place regarding compensation and other programs to help with that. But also importantly, integrating our products better together. And so, our goal is to be able to approach a customer and say, listen, if you want a solution, whatever your use case is, here's a holistic solution that you would need. And it can include Snowflake, a variety of AWS first-party services, and also other products. It could include the Salesforce connector, for example, as an easy and unique way to get data into Snowflake, or other tools as appropriate. So we want to give customers that choice, but they need to know that when they buy from Snowflake and they buy from AWS and Salesforce, that everything will work together very well, and they will truly be able to get a best-of-breed solution.
Thank you for the comments on both of those fronts. Just zooming out a little bit on that, Peter. Any thoughts on what the partner roadmap looks like as we get into next year? Is it, some of the things that come to mind for me, I got to imagine you have tons of interest from all kinds of different technology players or systems integrators, consulting businesses. Any thoughts you can share about your mindset towards partnering as you get into 2021 and beyond?
Sure. Well, first of all, I know that we formally launched the Snowflake Partner Network this past June, and that has now grown to over 1,000 different partners. So partnering for us is a core part of how we deliver an ecosystem that has an impact for our customers, and we'll continue to make very significant investments in that, including both on the product side as well as other aspects as far as how to go to market together with our partners. Looking at two of the partners that you mentioned before, AWS and Salesforce, we do have some near-term products that are coming out hopefully next quarter that should make a difference, that are not public. One of them from Salesforce is called the Sync Out connector. The output connector that shipped a couple months ago from Salesforce was a great first step in helping get data more easily with clicks, not code, out of Salesforce and into Snowflake. The Sync Out connector will be able to do that, but bringing in those full objects directly from Salesforce into Snowflake on a more regular basis. And then we'll handle the transformation inside of Snowflake, and that'll include incremental data loads and CDC and things like that. So we're very excited about that. That's supposed to ship in the spring time frame, the spring release for Salesforce, which is actually kind of a late winter time frame, hopefully, knock on wood. The other thing that I'm excited about in this space, and machine learning in particular, as you mentioned, we announced at reInvent some new integrations with SageMaker, both in terms of working with SageMaker Data Wrangler, which is their new data prep offering. And I think we're the only non-BI partner to have integrations with SageMaker's Autopilot, which is their auto ML capability. And so when you talk about wanting to bring some of those insights out, that'll be very important. We also have the ability to go ahead and call from Snowflake out to SageMaker endpoint with our external functions capability, and then bring those insights back into the BI results that we'll send up to a Tableau or another BI partner. So there's a lot of very exciting things there. Those are just two in Q1. We'll look to move forward then with all these partners and say, what's next? What's the next phase? And there are very active discussions right now with Salesforce and thinking about what do we want to do next? How can we better solve customer problems? What internal POCs are we running? Things like that. It's important to understand Snowflake also consumes a lot of these services ourselves. So we have our own integrations with Salesforce today. We are doing our own use cases with things like account and lead scoring. How do we make that easier for our customers to do that out of the box, along with a bunch of other use cases? These are some of the things we're looking at, and stay tuned for announcements later next year.
Thank you, Peter. One more question for you. I love to pose this to all the folks that join this interview series. It's really a question around how do you set yourself up for success in this, new data-driven world. Any advice from you as you look at Snowflake customers, as far as what's the most important, first step to be considering to set yourself up for success?
I think that's a great question because there's certainly a lot out there that companies can do. What we hear most frequently from our customers and from our service partners like Atrium is the first thing you need to do is you need to move the analytics platform, even if just for existing workloads, to the cloud. Once you're in the cloud, you can then say, what do I want to do as far as taking on use cases and new workloads? And what are some of the new tools I can add on top of that? So a lot of folks talk about machine learning, but until you really have that robust platform in place that makes it easy to do, data prep and data management, that can then lead to feature engineering, you need to get that core platform in place first. So I'd say existing workloads to the cloud first, then you can step back and say, where do we want to go from there? That may lead to machine learning as your next step, or may lead to marketing analytics or customer 360. But there are a lot of interesting use cases you can follow once you make that initial step.
It's great advice. Well, Peter, I want to say congrats to you and the Snowflake team. You've hit some incredible milestones over the last few quarters. I mean, we see it every day in the customers we're working with, where Snowflake is a big part of our mindset, and we see it in the architectures where we're working together, and the frequency of that. And then obviously there's all the milestones that you've hit as far as getting the IPO in place and all the momentum in the market. So big congrats to you and the team. We're excited to see what kind of results you produce in the next year for your customers and for all of us and your partners. And thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you, Chris. I have to say, having special service providers like Atrium deliver some compelling offerings to the market and really solving key customer problems is what it's all about. And it takes an ecosystem to deliver the data cloud, and we're committed to doing that now and moving forward.
Perfect. Thank you, Peter.